What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and we got another fun one for you guys as we head back to Bettin N Boozin's coverage of the Gulfstream Park Championship meet with the Rainbow Pick6 on Saturday, February 22nd. So welcome in, everyone. Thank you guys all so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. If you are new here or find yourself coming back on the regular and you aren't subscribed, why not? You're already coming back anyway. Please go down below the video player here on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it because not only is 100% completely free to do and help, and it's the best way to help out our channel, but it also pushes these videos out into the YouTube algorithm to hopefully bring like-minded horse players like yourself to the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, for that, we thank you. As you see scrolling on the bottom side of the screen right now, this is the normal podcast schedule for every single week here on the HHH Racing Podcast channel. Mondays, intermittent Mondays, we have Horsin Around. It's generally a recap show. It's going to get a little bit more steady as the weeks come on here as we are going through the Derby prep season. So you be on the lookout Monday nights for that. Tuesday nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you have the young guns over there at Pacific Horseplayers with Noah and Ryan covering your West Coast racing for the weekend. Of course, every single Wednesday here at 8 p.m. Eastern with Bettin N Boozin, and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern as well. Picks and Ponies with Howard, Pete, and Paul covering Rebel Stakes Day tomorrow. So if you guys are looking for Oaklawn, be sure to tune in tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. But to couple with Oaklawn Park, we're not going to short Gulfstream because Gulfstream actually has a very, very good and competitive card this weekend. And we are going to cover the late pick six. There's only one pick six. I keep calling it the late pick six. The Rainbow 6 on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. And it started off by a pretty nice sprint dirt stake race, which includes the return of Nakatomi, which of course is on the thumbnail that you guys all saw today. So let's get right into it. Of course, every single episode posted here to the HHH Racing Podcast YouTube channel is also posted in audio form, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. For those inclined, so go please rate, review, and subscribe over there. We would greatly appreciate it. TikTok and Instagram over at Bettin N Boozin Podcast, so follow us over there as well for more short form content. The Power Picks guys still going super strong. $2.10 RI all time since February of 2021. That includes 788 total picks for almost 4 years now. Well, it is 4 years now. It is February 2025. So please, if you guys aren't subscribed, it's super inexpensive. It's only $4.99 a weekend. It comes out to $21.60 a month, which is how Patreon bills it. And every single Saturday, you'll get a full tip sheet sent out to you with 3 tracks of price plays, spot plays, pick 5 grids, everything you need to be successful on any given horse racing Saturday. We here at the HHH Racing Podcast have you covered with the Power Picks. That link is patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. The link is also in the description as well. And if you want to see previous editions of those aforementioned Power Picks before you buy them, give them a look over, or just want to learn more about the podcast, we have our great website created by co-host of Picks and Ponies, Pete Fisco, HHHRacingPodcast.com. Guys, like I said, we're covering 6 races today, not 5, so we're going to get into it a little bit early here. But I want to give ourselves a quick shout out as I'll bring on my co-hosts here, and then I'm going to talk with Charlie and Pat about our Super Bowl episode, which I completely negated to talk about last week. So Patrick from the East Coast of New Jersey and Charlie Freeman, of course, from the Ohio State University. Gentlemen, what's going on tonight?
Nothing much.
Glad to be back.
Good to see you
Cheers
guys.
to everyone out there. I'm glad that you guys, Pat, welcome back. Appreciate you joining back as always. And Charlie, of course, the man that's always here, it seems like. And even Rush got home early so he could be here from the start of the show this week instead of 20 minutes late as he has been the last couple weeks, of course, as both the guys on the screen have to deal with basketball issues, which is the worst of the Power 4 sports, but that's my own opinion. Cheers to everyone out there. That's respect. Cheers to everyone out there. Still rocking Spotted Cow. Got to get through the case, and then we'll go replenish. So cheers to everyone out there. Let's get into the show. But Charlie, I wanted to mention this last week, honestly, and completely negated to do so. But we absolutely destroyed the Super Bowl. Like, if people followed our picks for the Super Bowl, we absolutely destroyed. Of course, we had good friend of the podcast, Matt Miller, on as well. We are all over the Eagles. We are all over our prop bets. Every single thing that almost every single thing we talked about hit. I know we mentioned a defensive scoring touchdown. That also hit as well. So, again, not necessarily to gloat ourselves, but when we give out some good stuff, of course, we want to highlight it. And, of course, my mind completely slipped me last week. Meant to mention it the week afterwards, Charlie, but I'll tell you what, man, we absolutely destroyed that game.
Yeah, no, I think a big thing that we spent a lot of time talking about was just the realities of how much we weigh, the public that's going to have bias towards the Chiefs and just like how good Mahomes is and how many times they kept escaping games that they shouldn't have as the not as good team, but just kept winning close games and balancing that out with the Eagles. And I think a big thing we talked about a lot, especially with Matt, who was all over that game, was kind of just the angle that the reality is yes, if it was a close game like when they played in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, it probably would go the way of the Chiefs. But a big thing we talked about with bets was taking adjusted spreads, hammering the Eagles at much bigger numbers because of the reality that we kind of all talked about. If there was going to be a blowout, it would likely be, the Eagles blowing out the Chiefs rather than the other way around, because the Chiefs haven't really won any blowout games, if you think about it, as much as they're like. Remember, they struggled with the Texans. They escaped Buffalo. They didn't think about the Eagles. They absolutely destroyed the Commanders in the conference championship. So they do those things. So I thought we all did a really good job together, and I think it certainly doesn't hurt when you have Matt Miller on too. So I want to give him his props as well because it was a team effort with him too.
No, and of course, Patrick and Noah included in that show as well. I already brought it up on the screen multiple times, but we talked about taking the Eagles by a field goal. Coupling that, taking the Eagles minus a bigger number, I took a minus 6.5 instead of 5.5. Obviously, those hit. Matt talked about it was either you needed Saquon or needed Hurts. Ended up going with Hurts. Obviously, that hit. Defensive touchdown that Charlie had. It feels like just everything was going right for us, except my dear baby. It's to mention my reputation is over. My life is in ruins.
It's not over. You go back to the drawing board. You go back.
We do go back to the drawing
board. You got to do some research. You got to look at how he flipped the coin. You got to look at how they held. You got to figure out what went wrong in the game plan this year.
You got to go back to like sports science, back in the day. And
you got to study film. You got to see what you did wrong and get it right next year.
Dude, 6-0 in the last 6 years. 5-1 sounds a lot worse. But of course, we will be back. Matt Miller, Katie. My mom is in the chat as well. Mom, thanks so much for doing the show. Greatly appreciate it. Of course, the boss is in here. So if you guys are new here or come back and you still want to say anything in the live chat over on YouTube or on X, it's on the bottom right-hand side of the video player. Feel free to chat within reason, of course, and we read every single one. So, guys, was absolutely a great show back in the Super Bowl. We hope to replicate that today. As I mentioned, guys, we're covering the Rainbow 6, and that starts in race number 7, and that arguably is the feature on the card, although the smallest field that we will talk about today is in the Gulfstream Park Sprint Stakes. As I bring up the Equibase right now, if this isn't your first time here on Bettin N Boozin when we cover Gulfstream Park, we all know they do not have morning lines, and of course they do not have horse numbers in the past performances we're going to look at. So gentlemen, as always, please try and be courteous, say the number as well as the horse name when you're talking about your races. Field of 7 in here. Morning line favorite will be the number 4, Nakatomi. Junior Alvarado takes the mount here for Wesley Ward, as a lot of the riders will be over in Arkansas for Rebel Derby Day, or for Rebel Stakes Day, excuse me. Basically, Rebel Derby. It is what it is.
Basically,
and then you got Comedy Town in there for Drayden Van Dyke, Concrete Glory, the Pennsylvania bred, also for Safi. Safi has 4 in here of the 7. And as I bring up the picks right now, out of 7 guys, we're actually all going with different horses. I'm going with the number 6, Concrete Glory. Pat's going with the number 7, Comedy Town. And Charlie is going with the number 4, Nakatomi. Charlie, of course, I'll let you go first, as you do have the morning line favorite on, or what's going to be the morning line favorite on top. Look, he's super good. I'm a massive fan of his. Obviously, this is going to be his first race since the Breeders' Cup Sprint, which a lot of people argue if there's any time to beat him, this is the time. But look, he's probably just better. And if he runs back to any of his races, he's easily the most likely winner in this field.
Yeah, and I just have a feeling that Junior is going to have this horse spotted for Wesley in the perfect trip. I think he's honestly going to sit right off the pace. There's, I think, enough speed for sure. I mean, you look at Super Chow, for example, and obviously with this many Saffies in the race, probably swerving. He's going to have at least one or two of them trying to, send like heck to try to set up for some of his others, because I know Concrete Glory's pretty fast too, but that's one that's been going 1.7 furlongs, so likely won't be on the lead. Same with Comedy Town. So I just think Nakatomi can sit a nice pocket trip. And the thing that I keen in on the most, and you guys can push back or agree with me on this, but I feel like something we talk about a lot with Wesley's horses is he always likes to have them working forwardly. So I thought that was a big thing for me to key in on. I understand the very last work was 51-3, but you look before that, 48 flat, 48-2, a minute flat, all very solid works anywhere, but especially at a track like Payson where they typically work a little bit longer for their times. So for me, it just looks like he has this horse ready to go. I think there's a lot of fair criticism in terms of the layoff and the big race that this could be the time, but I can't go against a horse in Nakatomi who is just so consistent in game.
No, I mean, look, I completely agree with you. I already mentioned that he's going to be the most likely winner and obviously going to be the post-time favorite coming in this race. But Pat, we talk about this all the time where Nakatomi's going to be 6-5, 7-5 at the absolute maximum in this race. And if there's any time to beat him, it is this time coming off this Breeders' Cup layoff. I don't believe in the Breeders' Cup bounce and stuff like that, but
Breeders' Cup
this
hangover?
type of layoff, the Breeders' Cup hangover, obviously it does happen. And this is obviously a pretty big candidate for him, although he hasn't really run his best in the last two, although losing the federal judge by 5.5 at Keeneland, where that was a pretty decently speed favoring track early in the meet in the fall. Now coming back at the Del Mar, obviously the Breeders' Cup Sprint, make your own type of thing there. Now comes back into this spot, much, much easier. But you are going with the number 7, Comedy Town, hopefully to get the same type of trip, maybe a little bit in front of Nakatomi.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think we do have to question here how, I know Charlie called it the Safi stakes or whatever you want to call it here. He's going to play games with the horses that he has in here. And I do think the 7, I'm going to be keen in on, because I think he's going to be a little ahead of the 4 Nakatomi and should be able to deal with the pace pressure of what I think the 5 and the 6 are gonna have. So I'm hoping Comedy Town off that last effort. Yes, it was a little questionable, but was off a decent layoff. So second off the layoff, Safi is noticeably pretty good. So I'm hoping, this horse, odds last time I think was 9-5. So probably will be second choice if I had to guess here. I think Drayden should sit that stalking trip in third, I would say. And hopefully pounce on him in the stretch.
I like that he's drawn outside. I have him in third. Probably could have put him in second. I really liked him last time.
Yeah.
Granted, off the layoff, ran well, just got beat by Damon's Mount, who was another horse off a layoff that I was against that day. Just wasn't right for him, but obviously Comedy On could win here. You always can argue that, he's 7 years old, second off a layoff, not going to be too much of an improvement, but still, those low 90s can easily beat Nakatomi if he just needs one to look on to bigger things like Keeneland down the way. I'm doing the same thing, but I'm going with Concrete Glory here. I showed the time for him, guys. I feel like the Super Chow is always going to have to go. I understand Concrete Glory 6. He's 10 for 16 at Gulfstream Park, 14 for 16 in the money, obviously keying in on the win end. I feel like he's just going to sit off a Super Chow. And if there's one horse that's going to get a pretty good jump on this field, it's going to be Concrete Glory. Edgard Zayas, of all the Safi horses, this is the one that Edgard Zayas chooses, and being Safi Joseph's number 1 guy, he's going to have the call on which one he wants to go on. Obviously, DVD has ridden Comedy Town, so he's going to choose there. I feel like everything's just kind of on go here. This is not necessarily not off any type of layoff, not second off a layoff. He ran in November. This is going to be a little bit step up, but last time he handled it perfectly with basically the same exact trip I believe he's going to get in here. I really like Concrete Glory in this spot, and I know since Nakatomi is going to be bet that hard, even if Concrete Glory is the second choice, you're probably still going to get somewhere in the realm of something like 5-2, and I feel like that's I think at least 5-2 I would need, but 5-2 is well and truly enough for me to take a chance against a even money horse that's going to be coming off a layoff. Even though he might be a better animal, this might just be the time to beat him. And I think if Concrete Glory gets the just outside pressing trip, I think that's kind of his way to victory. Charlie, feel free to touch on anything Pat or I said, and then we'll move on to the next races. Those are the 3 we have in the top 3.
Yeah, I think this is certainly an interesting race in that when you consider the three horses we've talked about are two 6-year-olds and a 7-year-old, and yet they're also the very clear top three to beat. Comedy Town, personally, as someone who also agreed with you, I thought it was Comedy Town or Classify, and that was a Saffy race, and it turned out to be neither of them as the horse off the huge layoff got it done. The only concern I had with Comedy Town is the talent's still there. Obviously, the age is naturally a question, and also I just felt like, and you can push back, Kyle, because I know you like this horse a lot, but it really looked like he had every chance to win that race and just could not get by, so that makes me a little bit nervous in that I feel like if him and Nakatomi are somewhat near each other, which I think they will be, Nakatomi might have a better devastating kick. And then Concrete Glory, I think everything you said is spot on. And this personally to me is the main horse that scares me from Nakatomi, just because I think out of all the horses up front, he's the one who can get the jump that I actually do think has shown enough of a kick that if Nakatomi has too much to do late, this one could get away.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I saw it. There's a bunch of others in this field. There's another one in there. Vince Cheminade is actually in town this weekend, running on Okiro on the outside. That one just might be my type of little wild card horse to get in there. Super Chow, I feel like his best days are behind him, and especially if he's going to have Concrete Glory to his outside, I would rather have the 6. Swervin's the horse on the inside for Saffy that, again, has shown to go, but I don't know if he's as fast as he used to be. Now getting on 5 as well, so, and I think it's just a step below a lot of the other horses in this race. So I'm going 6-4-7 in the Gulfstream Park Sprint. Pat's going 7-4-6. Charlie's going 4-6-7 to kick off the Rainbow 6 on Saturday. Sylvain, welcome, Sylvain. Thanks so much, man, for joining the show. I haven't seen your name in a while. Greatly appreciate it. I will not be showing that comment because it's USA time, baby. We need USA tonight in, of course, the Four Nations. Probably, this might be a little bit, I'm probably not even a hot take at this point, the best all-star break competition that we've seen in a long time. And it's a really fantastic competition. I'm really excited to watch this game tonight after the show. And Jim Pilars, man, thanks so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. Of course, we'll let you join the party whenever you want. Guys, we'll move on to race number 8 here, and that is the start of the late pick 5. It's an AOC 25,000 5-furlong turf sprint, field of 9 in this race. This is one that I feel like favoritism go a lot of different ways, but I will show our picks up right now. Charlie and I are both going with number 5, the Florida bred Test Factor, Edwin Gonzalez for Rohan Crichton. Pat's going a little bit off. Charlie has this horse in second. I actually don't have this horse anywhere. Esperon for Edgard Zayas and Joe Brady, and I'll show the PPs up right now as I can get it switched. Pat, I'll let you go first as you are the odd man out. What did you like most about Esperon?
Yeah, I thought Esperon obviously has shown a ton of speed in pretty much every effort. And with these turf sprints, I always like to say that I like horses that are forwardly placed, and especially on the outside here, Esperon's gonna have to go. And I think it sets up favorably for him to go in this spot. The last time out, and pretty much every time, he's been on the inside, been drawn inside. So you do question how this horse is going to handle it. But obviously, he's been working forwardly. Zayas is known to be pretty aggressive with these horses in here. The connections, Brady's actually been pretty decent with the, small sample size of horses that he's had running. So, listen, I'm going to give this horse a chance from the outside, hopefully clear, because if this horse does not clear, I think I can kind of throw my ticket away, as they like to say.
Say Pat's race is decided within the first, couple yards of the entire race. But there's no saying. Obviously, Timeform has him out in front as well, and not that we take Timeform for gospel around here or anything like that, but they generally are pretty good with their early projected Timeform. And this Gulfstream Park 5 furlongs has always played better to speed, as a lot of these flat 5s do. And if Esperon can clear, absolutely watch out. And of course, my apologies, it's David Brady. I looked at the J in the middle name and I thought of something else. So someone else, my apologies. David Brady has all the chance in the world if he can clear into the outside. Obviously, he's going to have to work from that outside post with other horses to the inside that do want to go to the front. So that's my only dubious factor with the 9. That's why I left him out, is even though Timeform has him out in front, I feel like there's a couple horses on the inside that we might touch on that only one way to win this race is to go. But of course, we've said that before. Number 5, Test Factor, Charlie. Very tough race. I ended up here as you did as well. This one just looks to be realistically that could sit the best trip in this race. He's not necessarily got the job done stalking and rating, but he has shown the ability, especially 3-back at this flat 5 at Gulfstream Park. Again, very tough race, but this is one that I think could trip out.
Yeah, this is one I've honestly chased for a while. Fortunately, in the 2 wins that he has had in his career, I've been on him because I basically always bet him. And this was one who the public clearly thought was going to put it all together last time out too, just maybe not so dominantly, because this was a horse who I believe I was actually talking to Noah about, who was like 6 or 7 to 1 morning line and a pick and pray who was playing or something like that. And horse goes off at, less than 2 to 1 favorite and then goes on to romp and really did put it all together. Certainly one that I think there are some questions with, and that he, was running at 5 furlongs for a while and just kept not getting there quite in time. And then they stretched him out to 7.5 where he finally broke the maiden, but then, came back and lost to a good horse and Tap Gold and finished second, lost the race before that to Reef Runner, who's obviously one of my all-time favorites, has been running against a lot of solid horses that run at this kind of level. And believe me, this horse is nowhere near the ability of Just a Care, but I'll let you add on, Kyle. But it almost feels like when I love Just a Care in that race 2-back where the horse won, where he could just be the one that sits that perfect trip, where you have the clear horses that are going to be sending like heck in this race, and then you have the clear horses that are going to have to need a meltdown. And sometimes when you have horses that clearly are at one end of the other, it's nice to have the one that will probably be sitting just off of it and can work out that perfect trip.
Yeah, it's one of those things, especially in these flat 5 sprints, where the horse is going to be close enough to the lead where it doesn't need to make an absolute from the clouds run to be able to win, and barring, knock on wood, barring something nuts happening out of the starting gate. But this one's going to be there. The only thing that I was a little dubious at first about was this horse has been running against State Bred Company, but that like I said, mentioning that 3-back effort was against open company and 3-year-olds and older in that race, and was showed the ability to rate, just didn't get there. I really like this horse in this spot. Would I bet it vertically? You guys know how much I love turf sprints. If this is your mojo, go for it. Not personally for me. I feel like there's so many different variables in races like this. But as you mentioned, Charlie, if there's one horse in this race that I could see getting that trip, even though, and there's horses to the inside that do want to go, such as Jet Wings, the 1, and even Cruisin' Man, the 2, also for Rohan Crichton, might I add. Test Factor just looks to set up for Test Factor perfectly. So that's just there's really nothing else to say. And above all else, and he's running very good speed figures as well, buyer speed figures above all the rest of the horses in this race. So Pat, you have that horse that I aforementioned, Cruisin' Man for Rohan Crichton. This is a horse that was very, very good back in 2023. Maybe his best years are just behind him, but this is one that should be a little bit closer, and this is going to be the second time running at this type of, drop in class distance from what he was running super good before.
Yeah, he likes this distance. It's obvious, this horse has had some, a little rough time in 2024. So I'm hoping maybe the new year can get this horse, back on track here. Because it's there. The talent was there. So, obviously this horse is going to be a little more forwardly placed. And the common theme here with me is I do kind of want horses that are more forwardly placed in here. I'm just not, I don't know. I'm not really thrilled taking somebody coming from too far out of it in here. Obviously this horse is going to have to get back to its old days. But I'm willing to take the chance in here at what's going to be a good price.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, generally speaking, you want to be closer to the lead on these flat 5s. Charlie, we'll wrap it up here. We both have the number 3, the horse just to the outside, Masked Man. Speaking of horses coming from the clouds, this horse absolutely flew last time out, just losing to a couple others. Esperon in this race, who's the 9 who Pat has on top. Like I said, even though 25 to 1, absolutely flew from the clouds. Second time on the turf, this horse could even improve and fight for minor placings again, if not the win.
Yeah, no, and I think this is probably one of the bigger wild cards, and I mean this in a good way in this race, because obviously that was the first time on turf. Also an incredibly light-raced 4-year-old, obviously, with only having 5 career starts. Like you said, came from the clouds, and my sword angle is number 1. I don't know if this horse has to be that far back going forward, because look at the 2 Tapeta races, and this horse sat a lot closer. So I actually think Masked Man could end up sitting a similar trip to Test Factor and be more of a stalker. But ultimately, I just wanted to sort of have horses from all angles. I like Pat's thoughts with Esperon as a horse who's beat me before from just being too fast. And I do think Esperon's the speed of the speed and benefits from the outside. So I want to be covered that way. But then outside of having the speed of the speed, I really just want the 2 horses that I think could stalk and get the right setup. And obviously you can add on, Kyle, but I'm assuming you kind of felt similar about Masked Madness Test Factor, just another who could maybe sit close behind and wait.
Absolutely. I mean, he broke really slow. He broke pretty slow last time. He had the rail the whole way and came flying. But yeah, even if he does sit closer, he's absolutely a threat in this race. But if he doesn't, obviously he's shown to sit closer in the past. Maybe he can take to the turf a little bit better early, but a lot of that's, of course, to be shown. But hopefully he won't definitely not get 25-1, which I guess is the dubious factor of if you didn't like him at 25-1, makes you like him at 3-1. But I think Masked Man is at least worth a defensive look on top and needed underneath. Last horse I'll talk about real quick is number 8, Street Rod, Jeremiah O'Dwyer, Raylu Gutierrez. This is another one that's going to be up close, but has the ability to stalk. Broke his maiden stalking off the pace with David Egan aboard, and last time out, first time off a little bit of, it wasn't. First time out just off the trainer switch to O'Dwyer, showed a little bit of a rating job behind and just losing to King Julian, who's a very nice allowance horse out in New York. So Street Rod going to give at least a little bit of a look here. Could improve paired by or top. Could improve this second time out here. Jeremiah Dwyer keeps him down at Gulfstream Park in the first time out at 5 years old. Guys, we'll continue moving along here. I'm going 5-8-3. Pat's going 9-2-6. Charlie's going 5-9-3 in race 8, the start of the late pick 5 at Gulfstream Park. Race number 9, guys, is a really nice main special weight, and this is a very tough main special weight at that. Field of 10, going 1 mile and 1/8 on the dirt for 3-year-olds, and I show the PPs right now. The morning line favorite is going to be a debate between the number 5, Doroteo, and the number 2, Skate Away. And as I bring up our picks right now, see, we're going with one of the two. Charlie, you and I again, my friend, going with the number 5, Doroteo. Pat, the odd man out, one more time, going with the number 2, Skate Away. And Pat, you're up first again. Of course, I'll show the time for him. They have Skate Away out in front here. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but obviously I feel like that'd be pretty good based on what you're seeing in this race.
Yeah, I do think obviously the horse will be forwardly placed in here. Has been working, very, very. It was pretty solid, I would say. Has shown and I think wants to go longer as the horse seems to be bred for it. So obviously they see something in this horse that they like. If this horse was bought for $400,000. Listen, what I do think is that race last time out was pretty good. There's a couple horses in there that are that have run pretty well back. So listen, these after these horses go from 1 turn to 2 turns, you always have to question it. But I do think Todd will have this horse ready to go, and you kind of wonder. I don't know about you guys, but this is one of those spots where a lot of these horses, if they can produce something pretty good here, they could put themselves in a position to get in position to maybe get in that big race. I don't know. There's a couple in here that could possibly do that.
I mean, definitely. I mean, Todd Pledge's Spendthrift Farm, 400,000, good magic. No reason to not take a stand if this horse does run very well. Even if not now, I mean, you could argue down the line, he'd be looking at something like that for sure. Obviously, Skate Away is going to need to improve off that last race, although the buyer figures are right there, but lost to a very nice runner in River Thames. If I bring up the PPs right now, you could see River Thames came out and won very nicely in an optional claiming last race. Next time out with a 92 buyer, so that's a horse to watch going forward. So if Skate Away can improve a little bit off that last race, can definitely be in the mix here. I have him in second. Charlie actually doesn't have him anywhere, but I can understand the dubious nature of a horse that's going to be that finished 4th by 10 and now is going to be one of the favorites in this race. Charlie, we're going with number 5, Doroteo. This is a horse that started out in a stakes race at Fairgrounds, the Sugar Bowl, ran very well behind Tough Catch. Then it came back to Fairgrounds, run at 1 mile and 1/16. Didn't run poorly, but didn't run the best. Losing to Hypnus and Cromwell. Cromwell, of course, Sherry DeVoe, top of the fan club. But comes back into this spot, gets a little more distance. Lemon Drop Kid, Bolt Doro, distance should be no type of issue. And this is the one that's most likely going to be the favorite.
Yeah, and I think this is the one that could absolutely trip out and honestly has probably shown the most ability in this field. The big question, as Howard pointed out, is with this horse being cross-entered, is does he actually run here? Because if he doesn't, that would make me have to completely rethink my top 3 in opinions for this race. That being said, I thought the debut was pretty impressive. I also thought for, not quite as major connections, that with some pretty serious and impressive intent to, not go to any sort of maiden special weight and just go straight into, the Sugar Bowl, and then comes back and sits pretty close on a very hot pace and stayed interested throughout, just ultimately didn't have quite enough kick after taking the lead. But out of the two horses that were setting those pretty crazy fractions, Doroteo was the one who was actually able to stay on. And I just think, he's still building. He's going to get better with each start. As you said, distance should not be a problem with him at all. I just think, again, he can work on road trip. I don't think he needs the lead. And I can realistically see him just sitting right off of, Pat's 2 and anybody else that really wants to send hard and just work out that nice trip by the time they go home. And then once those start to, fade backwards, he just takes that perfect spot sitting right off them and goes by and makes the closers have to try to make up too much ground.
I agree with you completely. And the fact that, again, the one thing that needs to be mentioned here, I brought it up on the screen, Howard brought up the whole key here is the 5 running Hero Oaklawn. He's cross-entered on February 23rd, at Oaklawn in the first race over there. So obviously keep in mind that this horse might not show up, but obviously by Saturday you will know whether, because the Oaklawn race is not until Sunday. So that's definitely one thing to keep in mind. But if he runs in this spot, I think he's got a very, very good shot to win here. You talk about tripping out, could just sit nice stalking trip as we've talked about before. Kind of basically paired up by her tops. Now could take a really big step forward here. Not necessarily his first race into his 3-year-old year, his second race, technically speaking, but should be improving with every start at this point. Yeah, and Howard brought up another good point where he says due to the weather in Arkansas, he might stay here in South Florida. I think that's a very good point to make. I have number 2, Skateaway, in second. Majorca is the horse I have in third for Pletcher as well. It's another one that's going to be up front, but I do like that he's drawn to the outside of a horse like Skateaway and Bob Moe. Feel like he could get a really, a little bit of a press stock trip that that might have a little bit of a say in things. Just wanted to include him, Castellano, and he's working well down at Palm Beach. So just wanted to add him in, keep him in there just in case he does end up freaking and winning. Charlie, I'll let you cover the last couple here, and Pat, feel free to chime in at any point. Love him or Liam for Bill Mott, Junior Alvarado. Blinkers on for this son of Liam's map. I feel it could be a really welcome change. He has been not really in the race and has come running late in both of his races. Hopefully, maybe the blinkers will keep him a little more interested early, keep him a little bit closer to the pace. And I don't feel like this horse is necessarily out of it by any means either.
No, and love him, Liam, last time out where, Grande and Camp Hale were just battling it out, the two of them way far clear of the rest of the field and setting. I know it doesn't show red numbers, but it really should, because visually it looked like they were flying, honestly, to the quarter and to the half, and you just didn't see anybody else on the screen. And then after those two crossed the wire, you just see Love him, Liam absolutely flying down the lane late. Obviously, when you see a horse lose by, 7 lengths and change, it would be concerning, but that's why you got to watch the replay to just see these other two were just so far clear and had a really solid time in the end for that mile on the dirt. But yeah, Love him, Liam was flying late, galloped out nicely, showed a ton of interest, and just looks like one where, like you said, when you watch the debut, it was very clear that he needed more distance. They gave him a mile, and he improved for sure. And now I think it's a mile and 16th. Bill Mott does, we talk about this all the time, like clockwork, how well Bill Mott does of placing his horses in the right spots. And I think getting blinkers on is another good thing to just help him focus a little more, as he's, he still is just a 3-0 with only 2 starts. And this should also help him maybe show a little more earlier speed. But I think this is the one you have to watch out for closing late. And I don't know what price you'll get because it is Junior and Mott, but I think this one's very interesting.
I was going to say, Charlie, you're talking about this horse. This horse sounded really interesting. I have the 9. So I don't know why I put the 3 in there. That's why I was kind of like, I was talking through it and I was like, wait, why I didn't like this horse.
You have a lot of picks you have to enter throughout.
Yeah, so that's a host fail on my part. But I was like, I'm talking about this horse. I know I liked him. Why did I not have him? But I guess that makes sense. So I'll have of course, a typo on the bottom side. I did like the 9 in third. Pat, last thing, anything you want to add on Love him, Liam, before we move on?
No, I honestly, Charlie hit on everything. I mean, I think this is the typical, Billy Mott progression where this horse is just going to get better and better. The light bulb's going to come on, and this could be the race. This horse has been working very well. Actually, Dawn Dragon and Love him or Liam have kind of been working hand in hand a little bit, and they've kind of been running about the same. So, listen, I think this horse is going to should be right there in the thick of things, and should obviously beat that 70 buyer that it got last time.
Yeah, if he continues to improve, of course, he's right in the mix. Just a matter of can he threaten the win with horses like Doroteo and Skate away. I'm going 5-2-9. Pat's going 2-5-9. Charles going 5-9-10. Charlie, you did mention that you have to leave a little early here, so I'll let you ditch out. I'm going to bring up your best bets on the screen. Feel free to touch on anything later in the card that you want to talk about. But Charlie's best bets for this Saturday at Gulfstream Park is race number 7, a double 4-6 into 5. That is, of course, Nakatomi. And the only threat that he said that he has in that race, which is the number 6, the horse I like in Concrete Glory, and singling the 5 we just talked about. Of course, being Test Factor, and in race number 11, another double in a race we'll talk about in a second with Tucson and the number, I believe, I think that might be a 7, Charlie, but either way, Junction Road, I believe, the outside horse who you're talking about, and singling the 1 in the last race after taxes, the other Wesley Ward horse that you like in the sequence.
Yeah, so race 7, I won't really touch much on that because we already talked about it, just again how much I like Test Factor. And then going into 11 and 12, actually on the show I was on last night, Noah and I along with Jackson and Ryan covered races 10 and 12 because they're part of the Coast to Coast, so go watch that for my thoughts on race 10. For race 11, last time out, I'm blanking on the name right now of the one horse, Tucson. Yeah, Tucson ran absolutely huge last time. I mean, to run 138 and 3 again, when you're a Gulfstream sicko like me who knows what times on the Tapeta should be, it's ridiculous. And to see a 98 figure, I can't remember the last time I've seen a figure that high on Tapeta there. So that horse is serious. And then, Junction Road has just been in terrific form lately and is a horse I absolutely love for Rowan Crichton. I'm really backing his horses in junior. So hopefully, they have a big day. And then going into the Wesley Ward, the one thing I do want to preface is that Dublin's Knight is an AE in that race. And if that horse gets in, that would absolutely change my bets because then I think that's a 2-horse race. Dublin's Knight is a horse for Brendan Walsh, who's a very big horse and likely just needs distance and time to develop, but was flying late last time against Wakan, who's a horse I loved. And then the Wesley Ward, who is the horse I have singled for now after taxes, is one who just seems to be sitting on a big effort, is working forwardly, and last time just missed against a nice horse in Versus. I think 7.5 is the perfect distance, and I have a feeling that, again, if that AE doesn't scratch in, I think after taxes is going to be awfully tough, and that Ward might just wire the field.
I agree with that AE especially. So if that horse does get in, that horse needs a look. They like after taxes as well. So, Charlie, I'll let you go, my friend. Good luck to you this weekend. And of course, we'll talk to you soon.
See you, Charlie.
Yeah, sounds good. Appreciate you guys.
Later, Chuckles. All right, Bat. Just me and you for the rest of the day, of course. We are on to race number 10, which is, of course, the middle leg of the late pick 5. It is race number 10. As I bring up the Equibase right now, it's another field of 10 going a mile on the turf. Another optional claimer, 25,000. As I bring up the Equibase right now, there you'll see it. This race, Pat, I don't know if you thought the same way. I thought this race was easily the toughest in the entire sequence. There's so many different ways you can go in this race. Funny enough, though, a lot of us are actually pretty similar in this race. I have my reservations about this race, and I'll talk about them in a second. But you and I are both going with number 8, Madame Mischief, the 1 for 15 Madame Mischief, might I add. Charlie's going with number 3, Spinning Colors, for Raylu and Mark Hennig. Madame Mischief is Edgar Zayas and Jorge Delgado. But we are decently different underneath, so we should have a little bit to talk about there. But what did you like most about Madame Mischief?
Yeah, first, the conditions of this race kind of cause, this to be a tough race to handicap, let alone with the horses that are in here, just because there are at least one horse, the 2, who, is eligible for this race just due to purses and stuff like that running overseas. So, it's tough. Madam Mischief, obviously being 1 for 15, it's difficult, but the horse has, from what I've seen, watching some replays, the horse has put in some efforts that have been there, whether it's been, the circumstances of the race and things like that. But I just think second off the layoff here for Delgado, who is pretty solid with that. I think should sit, a nice stalking trip in here. Has shown to be forwardly placed at times, but in here, I think this horse will appreciate, sitting a stalking trip in a pace that I think is going to be pretty fast. So I'm hoping that outside draw, the 8, and I believe Zayas is on the horse, can, get over to the rail here and, kind of just follow a couple horses in here. I don't know about you. A couple of the horses that this faced last time have come back to run pretty well. So I'm hoping this horse could be there.
Yeah, and you'll see on the screen right now the Timeform US pace projector. They have this listed as a fast pace. The 3 spinning colors, your most likely morning line favorite's going to be up there, along with a complete wild card, in my opinion, who's the number 10. She's a Tempest in this race. The 6 and the 7 are definitely not slow in their own right. The 6 definitely wants to be near the lead. So I think this is going to heat up pretty quick. And at this mile distance at Gulfstream Park, it's a pretty quick run up to that first turn. So if someone like the 10, she's a Tempest, wants to get to the lead, she's going to have to try pretty hard to get there from that outside gate. As I mentioned, I have my reservations. Look, at the end of the day, she's 1 for 15, guys. And I completely understand that. She has run some really good races coming down to last year at Monmouth. And even in that listed stake in the Boiling Spring, only ran second to a pretty nice Chad horse in Spaladay. I feel like this horse has talent. It's just a matter of putting it together. Also, the one that's going to take advantage of a hot pace looks to be the number 8, Madame Mischief. Edgar Zayas hops aboard here. Jorge Delgado trains, who's very good down at Gulfstream Park. Lots of things pointing to the good for Madame Mischief, but at the end of the day, would I play her at a decently short price at a 1-15 scoreline? No, I would not. But again, someone has to win this race at the end of the day, and I think Madame Mischief has all the pieces in her arsenal to be able to put it together. It's just a matter of, again, putting it together on race day. Charlie's top pick is the number 3, Spinning Colors, who I have in second. I needed to include this horse somewhere. If you go based on Timeform numbers, Timeform US pace figures, she's well above everybody else. I mean, she's run a 116 and a 114 in her last 2. No one else is within 10 points of that on the turf. She's a Tempest is only in there because she ran 3rd in the St. Isabel at Santa Anita Park on the dirt last year. So
yeah,
there's so many, like, she's well above numbers on this entire field. Problem is it's the pace. The pace does not set up for her. And when she's pressed on the lead, she does not run that. She doesn't run at her best. However, she has shown the ability to rate in the pass down at places like Saratoga, at Aqueduct, pretty nice places, especially when they run on the turf. Of course, Saratoga being the best of the best, even in those New York state bred races. She easily has the chance to win if she can sit. I know you don't have her anywhere. I definitely needed to include her, especially if he runs to her race. Mark Hennig, though, of course, 1 for 19. Ray Lou Gutierrez only 7 for 117. And Howard brings up a good point, which I did have. She was a vet scratch on 126, has worked back after that, though, of course, has actually worked back 3 times. Vet scratch on the 26th, worked on the 28th, the 6th, and the 13th. So even though did vet scratch, I do like the consistent work tab and the pretty decent work tab at that. So I think you need to include Spinning Colors if you're playing this and a horizontal, but vertically it's kind of hard to trust a horse at any type of low price in this race, Pat.
Yeah, I probably should have included her over the 10 just for the way I think the pace is going to be set up, maybe going against, the 8 a little bit, having the 10 in there. But yeah, no, horses have to go with her because this could be one of those situations where, if something happens where this horse gets free, gets loose early, we're all just chucking our PPs in the air and going, what's going on. But that does lead me into the 2. Louisa Bear, I think. Louisa Bear,
I believe.
Louisa Bear. Listen, this horse, we have heard a couple things from Miguel Clement from the Clement barn. This horse, has been training, over, I believe, at Payson. Put in a couple nice works. Had to progress a little bit. Wasn't ready for the time being. But now, the only question I think here might be the distance. Miguel said this horse is going to, make one run at it, try and get to the rail and hope there's some pace to run at, which should be there. Obviously this horse wants to go longer, but this horse is definitely of interest. You just got to hope you got to wonder if today's the day and this horse is going to be fully cranked.
Yeah, and that's obviously been Clement's been very, very good down at Gulfstream, which is not obviously, it's not out of the norm for Clement, but down at Gulfstream Park, he's not usually the win 22% type of guy. So it's really nice to see him winning some very good races down there. This, however, with foreign shippers is not necessarily his best game, especially off this type of layoff. 7 for 45 in the last 5 years with this type of layoff and foreign shipper. 44% of the money and under $1 of ROI. So you're not going to get paid necessarily. If he does win, although Louisa Bear should be a pretty decent price, and if she's taking money, that might be a sign that this horse is ready to go. 20 for 113 for just foreign shippers in the last. Actually, nope, I'm looking at the wrong person. Hold on, give me 1 second. My DRF likes to switch up things on me, so my apologies, everybody. Give me 1 second.
Kyle, while you're doing that, the one other thing we got to question here is if the horse can appreciate the turf. At Gulfstream, obviously it's a tighter turf, so it's that.
And if you look at her PPs, I mean, she runs very well on the heavy and has in her previous races. Those last 2 races, which were firm, obviously she ran well at Deauville, but at Chantilly, granted, again, a Group 3 company, she didn't run that well on the firm, and her last couple wins have been on the heavy and soft tracks. So definitely one thing to look for as well. And Christophe Clement on these types of layoff with foreign shippers is 2 for 16. That's what I remember from that, and 11 for 57. So decent with foreign shippers, however, not necessarily his best time off the layoff. And Howard brings up Trafalgar Square is running a big race in Saudi on Saturday, which I will talk about a show we have special for you guys on
I can't
Saturday.
Wait for that one. We'll have my mimosa ready to go.
That's right. Absolutely. I'm not a mimosa guy, but you know what I'll have in my hand. So no, we will definitely I'll be talking about that. So stay tuned for that announcement in a little bit. Completely respect Louisa Bear, but again, I feel like this is a spread race no matter what, at least in my opinion. Unless you have a really, really good opinion, you're going to need to spread here. I went with the number 1 Voodoo Magic in third. And no, before everyone shoots at me, it's not just because it's Cherie DeVaux. I promise. Although Cherie is very, very good off of these types of layoffs. If you go trainer switch, she's super good after getting horses for the first time, especially when she takes her time with them. Then I've talked about this at length before. I think that's Cherie's best game, is giving these horses time to develop underneath her care. And when she does, you can really, really see some improvement here. Just off of the trainer switch in general, I'm pulling up the stats to my side, which is why I'm looking. 11 for 56, 20% in the last 5 years. And if you do it off of a greater than 180-day layoff, you're looking at about 17% in the last 5 years. So pretty good numbers with this type of scenario. Wooten Bassett, filly as well, out of a Filly de Septembre, the mare Filly de Septembre, who breeds these type of longer distance turf horses. Phil D'Amato tried to run her down the hill at Santa Anita, broke slow, but still losing to Antifona and Zona Verde, and well backed at that. Obviously Phil D'Amato is very well backed on the West Coast, but 4-1 coming over from Longchamp, coming into that race off a little bit of a layoff, now gets an even longer layoff. This is her first race at 4. All those races over in Europe came at her 2-year-old season. She's gotten a lot of time to develop. And again, as I mentioned in the past and mentioned earlier, this is what Cherie DeVaux does best. So I need to include this horse at least somewhere underneath, maybe Trifecta Key, something like that. But I feel like Win N might be a little bit of a stretch. She's going to be a good price, but wanted to include her anyway. Pat, we'll get moving, though. I'm 8-3-1. You're 8-2-10, and Charlie's 3-8-2, which is, in my opinion, easily the toughest race in this entire sequence. Race 11 is the penultimate leg of the Rainbow 6 on Saturday, going 1 1/8 on the Tapeta, and it's the time to ring the bell. Everybody's favorite time of the sequence, your Tapeta race that everyone must include. It is a field of 8. Most likely morning line favorite is the number 1, Tucson, Edgard Zayas for Pletcher. And the second choice is going to be the number 8, Junction Road. And I know a lot of us, it's kind of either 1-8 or 8-1. We all have the number 1, Tucson, on top. However, Pat, you are going with the number 7, Frosted Over, who I have in third. Marty Drexler recently claimed Drayden Van Dyke takes the mount. But Pat, Tucson, that last race was very, very good for him. Did get a little bit of a pace setup there, but did it very well. Although first time facing winners for the first time, but this looks like a pretty good spot for Tucson.
Yeah, for sure. And Kyle, what are the odds you have a double in and out of this race in your best bets? I just had to throw that in there. I had not seen it, so no. Listen, Tucson. I mean, Charlie said it before he left. This horse ran unbelievable on the Tapeta and probably got one of the bigger buyers at this meet on the Tapeta. Listen, I think this horse can kind of do whatever it wants, gets the inside. Zayas can, this horse can break, and Zayas can kind of pick which way he wants to go in here. Obviously, he's been working forwardly since that point. I'm not trying to beat this $1.3 million purchase here. I know the horse is 4 years old, so you kind of question, what went on. But I don't have much else other than I just think this horse is kind of just a step above all these.
Yeah, and this is one that obviously, and the other thing you can question, Pat, is why is this, if this horse is really well meant, got a 98 buyer last time, why is this horse in a 25,000 optional N1X on the Tapeta at Gulfstream Park, but ran so well last time, maybe a stepping stone going forward. This horse has worked lights out on the dirt going up to that last race. Obviously hasn't been working exactly the same, although does have two pretty one really decent work in second, and the one on February 7th, which again, a little bit of a comeback work. That first race also that he lost to two next time out winners, with Stuckey was one of them. Granted, didn't run well at Gulfstream Park stretching out, but very good sprinter at Gulfstream Park, and Into Pleasure, who Brian Lynch brought to back in the same type of spot, but on the dirt, and ran a 91 buyer. So it's not like that this horse lost to nobody's first time out on the dirt either. So I think Tucson is very, very good and does not deserve to be taken lightly in this race. They actually have him on the lead. I don't know if that's going to happen. I would love for this number 7, who you have in second, Frosted Over, who has shown the ability to go to the lead many times over, take the lead. Tucson maybe take to the outside and just have first run on a horse like Junction Road. But anyway, Pat, you have this horse in second, Frosted Over. Makes a ton of sense. Might just have to, he's getting to, this is another horse that you like that's kind of had that same angle where, maybe getting to be 7 might not be at his best, although his best right now might still be good enough for minor placings.
Yeah, I'm probably making the boss mad by picking a horse like this, 7 years old off the claim. But Marty Drexler, has good numbers off the claim and has been doing very well at the meet. So I don't know. This horse kind of interests me a little bit. One of those where you kind of get upset when you lose to a horse like this. If this horse can, be forward in here, and sit the right trip, should be obviously forwardly placed, like I said. So I don't know. Obviously, you said it's kind of the 1 or the 8, and I want to see if I can get the 7 in here in the exacta. Should be a decent price, but I'm not too far off from what you guys are.
And I just did it. The picks right now, you could see. Granted, DRF only goes to 4-year-olds and older. First after the claim by Marty Drexler, 25%, 48 for 192 in the last 5 years, 98 of them in the money, so over half. So might not be taken lightly. His numbers do fit. Even especially these back numbers. I mean, if he can run anywhere near, low 80s, he definitely makes a ton of sense underneath at least. Junction Road is the horse that we all have somewhere in the mix. Rowan Crichton for Junior Alvarado. Honestly, Pat, I have, not to spoil it, I have a 1x2 or 2x1 double. But this could be very, very easy, at least for me, a very easy 2x2 double spot and just playing Dutch doubles, something in that regard. Because for me on the win end, it's really only the 1 or the 8. Junction Road does make a ton of sense. The 1's going to be a little bit more forwardly placed, I think, than Junction Road. However, there's no saying that Junction Road can't get the job done. He's 5 for 7 in the money, 2 for 7 on the win end, including 1-2 back. And that last race fits by far in this race. So, mid 80s, maybe even could progress to a low 90 buyer, which could be good enough in this race. So I definitely don't want to lose to Junction Road, who I believe is easily the second most likely winner in this race, and one of the only other likely winner for me in this race. If it's not the 1 of the 8 in this race winning, I would be very, very surprised. I'm going 1-8-7. Pat's going 1-7-8. Charlie's going 1-8-7. 8, 3. Rob does bring up a good point. Says the workouts for the 1 are slow compared to what he's doing before they debut, which is what I pointed out. I completely agree with you, Rob. Then Howard brings back exactly, Rob. Maybe Todd just figured him out. Those are maintenance works. Last time out wasn't that bad. 49-2 was still 10 out of 20. Again, not absolutely lights out, cranked up for that last race, but still I think is worth a look, at least on the win end. But again, the only other horse I think that can win is the 8, and Howard has 8-1 in this spot as well. But of course, Pat's looking to get the 7 in there, maybe for an exacta. Pat, let's move on to the last race of this Rainbow Pick6. But before we get on the last race, if you guys are enjoying the content that we're putting out here, please go down to the video player here on YouTube. Or if you're watching on X, please come over to YouTube, hit the like button on this video, and hit the subscribe button for more weekly podcasts. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And again, it is the best and freest way to help out our channel. Pat, race number 12 is a maiden special link going 7.5 on the turf, as Charlie alluded to earlier, with the number 1 After Taxes, your most likely morning line favorite for Junior Alvarado and Wesley Ward. Bringing up our picks right now. Look at us, Pat. Look at us. Who would have expected us, to be here? We're both going with the number 6, Tomasello, for Javier Castellano and Mark Casse, coming off a big last race. Charlie is going with the number 1 After Taxes, as he mentioned before he left. Pat, I'll go to you first. I completely respect Charlie's opinion and think that this one might be able to get loose, but there's horses to his outside that definitely want to go, being first up with the number 3, Golden Channel, who none of us have anywhere in there, who actually lost to Tomasello last time. But I don't think the 1's necessarily loose on the lead. And if the 5 can have a little bit better of a start than he did last time, being that he was 5 wide out of the 14 hole last time, I feel like, and I'll actually show this replay while you talk, Pat, but I feel like this replay was sneaky trouble, and he could be really good in this spot.
Yeah, I agree with you.
As I mentioned, sorry, Pat, he's the 14 right here all the way to the outside, and you're going to see he's going to get caught wide.
Yeah, he was the 11 out of the 11 hole, I think, in here. Yeah, he was way wide. And honestly, you watch this through. This horse got to the lead at one point, and the fractions, were pretty, were pretty quick. And I just think, everything that kind of the horse had to deal with, and then was able to kind of hang on there and end up, losing by a neck. With a buyer that fits right in there. Yeah, at top of the stretch, gets the lead. And ultimately, obviously it's kind of tough to hold on here, dealing with everything that this horse dealt with. So, this horse will probably sit another stalking trip in here. And, Kyle, I don't know about you, but, all these other horses in here, I like to see something kind of have an excuse here or there, just unless, you go off of, the works of the breeding here with a couple of these horses. I think this horse could be pretty good for Mark Casse.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at it right here, Pat, in this replay. I mean, he looks like this 11 could win by 5 right now, right? Yeah. But you look, and Tomasello, I don't know, like Howard just actually put in the chat, he's stealing my words. I don't know if the 11 just hung or the 14 battled back, but I thought that was a very, very good effort. And he gets by him just a couple of strides after the wire. And just for the boss, I'll show the gallop out. Tomasello's passed on the gallop out as well. So, yeah, not sure if the 11 just hung, but I thought that was a really, really good effort from Tomasello, especially after being wide on that first turn. I'm definitely interested in this horse on the win end. Much, much better post this time. Going to get a better trip in theory. I really, really like Tomasello in this race. And obviously none of us have the AE in here, but I alluded to it earlier. That horse is going to be a major, major factor if he gets in. Pat, the number 1, we both have in second. Charlie has on the win end. Wesley Ward, horse working lights out, looks to go to lead and never look back.
Yeah, I mean, this horse obviously could do what you just said, and I would not be surprised at all. But for the price this horse is going to be, I don't know. I can't trust it. Obviously, this horse's face, some pretty good competition over its first 3 starts, but you start to kind of pile things on together here, and you lose by a neck, you lose by a head, and you kind of wonder. I'm not really sure if there was an excuse last time. Maybe the pace was just a little too quick, but I'm going to go elsewhere. But like I said, this horse is, could be.
You at least have to use this horse defensively, and I know
sure.
you feel the same way as well. 7.5 could be the perfect distance, and I feel like the one thing that we need to point out is that I feel like the rail is very, very good for this horse, especially going the 7.5 distance, because it's a very, very quick run up to that first turn. So anyone to the outside of the 8 post is in a very tough spot here, which again, in theory, could hurt the 11 coming from all the way out there if he does end up getting in. Obviously, would be the 10 post at that point, and barring any more scratches, could come in even more than that. But 7.5, I like the 1 post coming from there. Looks to be a pretty good distance for him. Doesn't have to go too fast out of the gate necessarily. So definitely have to use after taxes if you're playing horizontals, or if you don't like him, I think you're going to have to at least use him defensively. Let's talk about this 11, Pat. We're kind of naming him, not talking about him. Dublin's Knight for Brendan Walsh. Edgar Zayas already has the mount on the also eligible list, even though he's on the number 10 Abundance for Windstar Farm. This horse ran fantastic last time at Gulfstream Park, just losing out to Walk On. He was also, you could see in the notes, reluctant load, had a little trouble getting into the gate, but still ended up flying late. So definitely need to pay attention if this horse gets in the gate.
Yeah, for sure. This horse, you do have to wonder. I mean, odds are I think this horse will get into the race. This could be another one for Brendan Walsh, who I'm blanking on the name of the horse that he had run earlier in the meet that kind of just took another step forward and is going to be another serious stake horse. Obviously, there's a couple that Walsh has in his barn, but this was a horse that was breaking his maiden, I think, early on. And this horse here gets in, obviously get the outside and, should sit that stalking trip to kind of pounce on all of them and will be the favorite if the horse gets in.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And obviously, as I mentioned with the post, it could be tough, even though he's probably just going to drop back out of it, at least to mid-pack, if not farther. So definitely might not be as big of a point for the 11 in this race. Pat, last horse we'll talk about, then we'll get on to best bets. Horse you have in third, World Beater. This is one that hasn't been on the turf at all, has been working on the turf and has worked very well on the turf multiple times. Blame mare, but Oscar Performance, you know how good he is with his turf runners.
Yeah, you hit everything I pretty much wanted to say there. You look at those two turf works. This horse is going to be, I would assume, would be a price. I'd watch the board. If this horse is getting bet, then I think we might know something. If not, kind of go the other way. But this is a fun sequence. I mean, you got to think if the 1 doesn't win in race 11, Tucson, this is going to pay. Probably is going to pay regardless, but this will pay a lot, especially if Nakatomi gets beat and the 1.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I mean, you're looking at 2 pretty decent favorites between Tucson and Nakatomi. This sequence can definitely pay with some very tough races in the middle that we already touched on. Guys, before we get on to best bets here, on Saturday, we have a very special show coming for you guys. It is with Howard Davy Lane, and a very good friend of the podcast, Davy Lane, and a very good friend of the podcast, Emmett Kennedy from Final Furlong podcast, covering live the Saudi Cup card. It's absolutely one you're not going to miss. It's not going to want to miss. It starts, I believe I'm not seeing it right now. Howard, let me know what time it starts in the chat if you don't mind. I would greatly appreciate it, unless you already put it in there. Give me 1 second. I'll scroll up. But Saturday's card, just this Saturday morning. So it is a very, very good card over in Saudi, and Emmett Kennedy and Davy Lane have the scoop on all the European runners. 10 a.m. Eastern. There you go. Last 4 races of the Saudi Cup card. 10 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Pacific time. I don't know numbers anymore. I looked at numbers all day. That's my own problem. But Emmett Kennedy, Davy Lane will have all the foreign runners covered like a glove. Not one you're going to want to miss, especially if you are betting the Saudi Cup card. So as Pat and I already said, going to be very excited and going to have some beverages in hand ready to bet with both of our hands. Fantastic Arlington legend, by the way, with that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no bias aside. These Saturday morning shows, when we deal with shows that are international, are always big time shows. They're always great. Even just take a listen. It's a fun time. So get in chat, and I always enjoy those
Yeah.
types of shows,
The
especially
live
Royal
shows are
Ascot.
always a fun time, no matter what we cover. But of course, when we have Davey and Emmett on, it's going to be a very, very good time. Scott brings up a good point. Yeah, I think Howard and Davey hit a monster last year on the Saudi card. Buscador finale was that they did hit a very good one. I know Davey Lane has been red hot on this podcast and over on HHH Racing Podcast.com, where intermittently you will see Davey Lane posting columns now on HHH Racing Podcast.com. So if you guys don't follow us on Twitter, follow both Patrick and I. I'm at AP Roscoe K. Patrick's at Patrick Kunsel on Twitter. And we always repost every time that Davey posts something on there. So it's definitely not something that you're going to want to miss, both on Saturday with the live show and going forward on HHHRacingPodcast.com with Davey Lane. Pat, let's move on to best bets here. I already talked about Charlie's best bets, but I will highlight them once more. Race number 7, a double 4-6 into the 5, and race number 11, a double 1-8 into the 1. And Patrick, I like your best bets because there's definitely different ways that you can play it. You have a big opinion on 3 races in a row, and one of them is a pretty tough main race in there. So race number 7, a win on the number 7 Comedy Town, and race 8 going with a double. You could even play this as a pick 3. Race number double with number 9, who is Esperon, if I remember correctly. Yep. I've looked at so many horses. Esperon, and into race number 9, which is the 2 and the 5, which is Skate Away and Doroteo.
Yeah, so Comedy Town, like I said, when we were highlighting that race, I'm hoping the horse will be the second choice, and I could get a decent price. And everybody's betting Nakatomi. Comedy Town could sit that nice stalking trip. And then in race 8, I'm going to play the double with the 9 Esperon, who I'm hoping is going to get to the lead in that race and never look back on turf sprint. That's always a question as a best bet, but I'm got to take a stand.
Hey, you got to take a stand somewhere.
The 2 and the 5, I think I have the 2 logicals in there, and I'll kind of just go from there, and maybe sprinkle a little pick 3, as Kyle said. That now that I have 7, 8, and 9 all covered in. But good luck to everybody playing, and have a great weekend, and go USA in the 4 Nations. What a fun game that's going to be.
That's right. And that's tomorrow, of course. So they're going to be a fantastic game there, of course. So, Pat, good luck with your best bets. I've already hinted to both of my best bets earlier. Pat, I am going against you, unfortunately, but I've already talked about what I like about him. Race number 7, a win on the number 6, Concrete Glory, to beat Nakatomi, and race 11, a double 1 with 1-6. That, of course, is Tucson with after taxes, and the number 6 that both Pat and I like, Tomasello. The thing that obviously will change this, of course, we've already alluded to it so many times. If the 11 gets in, I will be changing that best bet. I need to include that 11. So if you guys don't follow me again on Twitter, follow me at AP Roscoe K. I post every single pick that I play, every single bet that I play on the weekends. I post it there. So check back if this does get updated. And I put in, a question mark around smaller 8-1-6. I already talked about how much I love Concrete Glory in that spot. Think he can get the jump on Nakatomi sitting off a Super Chow. Could just be the time to beat Nakatomi, even though I'm a big fan of his and just think he's, a better animal than those horses are in that race. But in race 11, talked about how much I love Tucson. Could set a really nice stalking trip just to the outside of the speed in that race. Although the 8, I feel like, is the only other likely winner in that entire race, number 8, Junction Road. So maybe a perfect 2x2 double there to end my day into the last race, where the number 1 after taxes, which I could switch out for the number 11, Dublin's Night, if he gets in. But of course, with the number 6, Tom Masello. Guys, thank you guys all so much for watching this edition of Bettin N Boozin. Greatly appreciate everybody in the chat, also watching over on X and watching over on YouTube. If you guys are watching over on X and you enjoyed it, please come over to YouTube. It is on just in the post below the live show that I have on X. Click that link and please give us a like over here on YouTube and a subscription. We would greatly appreciate it. And of course, Patrick has been here, and Charlie, of course, was here earlier. So thank you guys so much for coming on, and thank you, everybody out there, for watching episode 120 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast, covering the Gulfstream Park Rainbow Pick6 for Saturday, February 22nd. And until next time, everybody, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.